it from the top. Welcome everybody. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant, and today's being another Saturday, this is another episode of Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. And this is the Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Let's start with this one. Nothing much happened, of course, for a couple of express entry draws, and we will talk about that. But for the PNP draws, this is how it is. 4th of April, Prince Edward Islands issued 66 invitations. They do conduct their draws quite on a regular basis. Their schedule is also updated on their website. British Columbia also this week issued 88 invitations to apply for permanent residence. This included the EEBC option as well. For people who are not aware, for British Columbia, you do need to have a job offer. Now, you see what has happened is childcare professionals are now needing a score of 90. Construction professionals need a score of 95. Healthcare are requiring 95. Tech professionals 116. Veterinary care also need a minimum score of 80. This is the classic example of how the demand, and I mean, if you are a student of economics, forget economics. If you went to school and you did this demand and supply, this is a great example of that, right? All this while, British Columbia's draws, whenever they would come out, you would see the scores being at 60 for EC, early childhood educators, for healthcare professionals. 60 was the score. And we have seen that score. I mean, you can go back and see my videos. There are tons and tons and tons of draws where the scores were at 60, and then obviously people started taking note of it, and they said, okay, this is an easy way to get through. So they were completing their 3 to 4 months of early childhood educator certification, getting those jobs, which I am a bit dicey about, but yes, they were getting those jobs, making this application. And as and how more and more people jumped onto the bandwagon, the result, as you can see, is that the scores have jumped up from 60 to not to 70, not to 80, but to 90. That shows how many people are now getting on, or rather wanting to get onto this stream. Similarly, the regular draws that were happening under skilled worker and EEBC PNP, the scores over there are also ridiculously high. It's now at 116. To be very honest, it's quite a high score. Earlier, they were at 95 to 100. I mean, we have seen 90 as well. We have seen 85 in some cases, but 116, if that is the score. But that also reflects the fact that there were only 88 invitations issued. But something that you need to keep your eyes on, that whenever something looks very easy, obviously a lot of people jump onto it, and then it stops being that easy. Manitoba also this week issued 350 invitations to apply to candidates. They were through the skilled worker in Manitoba occupation specific selection draw. They also invited 276 candidates who were working within in-demand occupations in the province. There were nurse aides, retail and wholesale trade managers, workers in general categories in construction. They've also invited 87 candidates in the skilled worker overseas stream, and 81 invitations were issued to people who had an express entry profile. So overall, Manitoba, if you were interested in this, then this was something which would have made you very happy. I don't know why it says Canada, because everything has to do with Canada. This is express entry draw. Now so my earlier rant that I was going on and on about, which thankfully was on mute, this is what it was about. So I made a video a few days. I mean, as I make videos, and I'll give you a bit of that sauce, right? I mean, why not? If I was ranting earlier, and at least it might get to the right ears this time. So after every draw, I tend to make a very short video, about that particular draw, whether it's express entry or PNPs or whatever that might be at that point of time. This time, there were 2 draws, right? The first one was on the 10th of April, and there was a general draw. And this general draw, let me just pull the screen up. And this general draw was for the score, which was, in my opinion, ridiculously high at 549. And the invitations that were issued were 1,280. Now, what happened is that I came out and I made a very short video just expressing my disappointment. I was the one who was disappointed. I'm sure there were hundreds, thousands of you who were also disappointed, but I was extremely disappointed. And even before becoming I guess I'm an immigration consultant, and I'm disappointed, not because this impacts my business. Thankfully, my business runs quite well, with or without these small or high or these fluctuations in the draws, because I do gamut of services within the Canadian immigration field. And you would be surprised as to how wide the field is. it's not only express entry. So anyways, so as far as the express entry, and I obviously came out and said that this was a very disappointing draw, to which surprisingly I got so much of hate and negative comments and trolls on that. Listen, I'm used to the trolls now that you're on social media, and you tend to get all kinds of situations, right? I don't have a problem with criticism. I mean, of course, you can have a different opinion. I can have mine, and we can all agree to disagree, kind of a thing. And again, being civilized and polite. But now one thing is very clear, that the room is completely divided. You have this portion of Canadian citizens, permanent residents, who are anti-immigration. And then, of course, you have the other side of the room who are in the favor of immigration. Why? Because obviously they are aspiring to wanting to become Canadian permanent residents. Most of these citizens and permanent residents, for some reason, forget that they are not native Canadians. They're not indigenous communities. They're not they haven't been here since 1900s. They or their forefathers or their fathers at some point of time have immigrated, whether from Europe, from certain parts of from Asia or whatever, and of course big contingent from India as well. And they tend to forget that they themselves are immigrants, and this land, this country gave them that opportunity, and therefore they have made this their home. And now to show hatred against people, okay, you want to be angry, you want to be upset with the way things are right now in Canada. I can understand that with the current situation, things have become a bit, not, I wouldn't say bit, okay, that might be understating it, but yeah, things have become bad. The economy is quite challenging. The cost of living is quite high. Inflation, again, is really, really high. Housing crisis. But instead of getting angry with people who want to come to Canada, get angry with the government who basically is the reason why we are even talking about this right now. But for some reason, this negativity comes out towards the people. And as far as me being disappointed is concerned, I was disappointed with the way IRCC is being opaque or not being transparent. And I couldn't really understand which direction IRCC is going to take this draws to. And that's all that I said. So no matter how many times I rewound the video and I wanted to check it again to see what exactly is it that is riling up these people, I couldn't really identify. So maybe if you are one of those, probably, yeah, do let me know what exactly riled you up, and maybe I can have a better understanding. But other than that, that was it. That the video was it. And people are like, I'm frustrated because me losing business. Well, yeah, I mean, as far as my frustrations are concerned, they're not for losing business. Those are for different reasons. But as far as the business is concerned, that continues. Whether it's the international students, if it's not the international students, it's different countries, whether it is Iran, Syria, Ukraine, Afghanistan, special measures that the government takes for these countries, or for any country for that matter. Hong Kong also was the part of this. Or then the refugees, or then if you have the work permits. We have so many clients who are corporate, who are IT companies, for whom we process intra-company transfers on such regular basis that, to be very honest with you, express entry forms a very tiny portion of whatever we do in terms of the immigration. We also represent clients in the Immigration Refugee Board, whether it's for refugees, whether it's for inadmissibility hearings. In addition to that, we also do several other things. So if you are worried about my business, well, I can tell you, please rest assured, you can be peaceful. Don't worry about my business. I think we were taking pretty good care of what we can do with our businesses. But as far as Canada is concerned, and your hatred and your anger and your irritation towards all that is concerned, directed towards the government, not towards the people. It's not people who are at fault. It's the policies, it's the processes that were created. So this was the earlier rant about, obviously not in such polite manner, but whatever it was. So coming back to the express entry draws. Express entry draw, in my opinion, I was very disappointed, and I can still not understand which direction IRCC is taking these draws into. We have now effectively been 3.5 months into the year 2024. As of right now, the number of invitations that have been coming through in the general category draws, honestly, it's not making a lot of sense to me. I'm not even if you go as per the data, even if you go as per the historical trends, even if you go as per the past, past data analysis, if you want to call that, it's not making sense as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure there are people out there who it might be making better sense too. I haven't been able to get that understanding as to why the number of invitations are so small, especially when they could have very easily cleared out 500 and then they could have restricted the numbers or sort of have gone a bit slower on that aspect. Each 2 weeks you would have, and let me bring this up instead. Yeah, so this was the last draw, which was on the April 11th, and we're going to talk about the STEM category draw as well. So just for your understanding, 9th of April 2024, this is the pool breakdown. In this pool breakdown, it will tell you very clearly that 601 to 1200 is 1093. Now, these are the provincial nominees. So these are the people who have received 600 points in their express entry profiles, based on which their scores have gone up above 600 very easily. This number at 501 to 600, this is the troublesome number. And the reason why it is so troublesome is, I mean, I know a lot of people say these are the people who have the LMIAs. Now, I'm sure some of them, quite a lot of them, might have LMIAs. They might have the 50-point LMIA. They might have the 200-point LMIA. It's all right. But a majority of them are actually the CECs. And when I'm saying they are the CECs, typically they will have a master's degree which they have completed in Canada. They have 1 to 3 years of work experience, foreign work experience outside Canada, and then they also have work experience in Canada. So when you take combination of all these three factors, your scores is going to be more than 500. If you also then add French component to this, your scores is going to be pretty good. You're going to be really sitting very pretty at 540s, 30s, 50s plus. I do not know why people feel that is not a possibility. Look at OINP's last year's breakdown of the number of nominations. Almost 5,000 nominations, not invitations, nominations were issued to the master's PhD stream. That just gives you a brief understanding of how many people would have completed their masters 2 years before they made the applications in Ontario itself. Now take Canada into perspective, and there are so many universities, people are studying masters across the country. Why wouldn't you expect them to sort of get those extra points and then becoming eligible and therefore scoring high? So this 501 to 600 actually has some very good candidates sitting over there. Keep aside those LMIA, etc. But I couldn't understand, and that was the reason for that, expressing that disappointment and not knowing which direction they are trying to take this into. So as much as you now want to bring categories into Canada, the priority occupations as you want to call it, do you know, I don't know I should be saying this or not right now on air, because I'm going to get a lot of some flack from some people out there. Well, so anyways, what the hell, right? We say all those controversial things anyways. Do you know a lot of these skilled trade that they are inviting, because obviously there is a huge shortage of skilled trade in Ontario. A lot of those candidates who are actually applying under skilled trade are running fake payrolls in Canada. Are you aware of that? Right? So people are not directing their anger where it should be. Now you want to direct your anger to something like this, where manipulation of system is becoming a mainstream, right? You're running fake payrolls, you're not really working. So what is going to happen is, even if these skilled trades, or for that matter several other occupations, even if it is not skilled trade, so it's not restricted only to skilled trade, but it has come to my notice from some information that was published somewhere, that a lot of people are resorting to this. So because that indicated skilled trade, that's what I'm mentioning, but I'm sure it is rampant in other occupations as well. So because Skilled Trade Ontario, the organization which is overlooking the skilled trades in Ontario, has indicated that by year 2027, there would be a requirement of 750,000, less than a million, three quarters of a million, that many number of skilled trade shortages, or that would be the requirement of skilled trades persons in Ontario alone, only Ontario, not Canada. And then you want to increase your construction. That's when you want to sort of, create the better infrastructure. And then if now you have these candidates who you are claiming to the Canadian public that we are fulfilling the labor market shortage by bringing these people who have the skilled trade, who have this, but majority of them do not have it. They are just showing it by way of documentation so that they can get their PR done through this channel. They don't really have those skills. So what is going to happen is that you would have obviously brought in more people. They do not have the skills, and then you're back to square one again. Then the next government is going to take the flak for it. Why don't you identify these situations? Ontario, for that matter, OINP is already become very strict. For people who do not know, they become quite stringent in the sense like the verification process has become quite stringent. For people who have been running fake payrolls, you should know by now that Ontario is taking very strict action. So if you're a candidate who has used that fake work experience, there is verification. That the reason why the processing times for Ontario are going up, especially if you are applying under the international student stream and you have got a trades job offer, if you're applying under the employer job offer stream and you have this trade offer, and very importantly, the skilled trade stream where people were running payroll for 1 year and using that, all those are under a very, very diligent lens of scrutiny, and there's a lot of verification happening over there. So this is really what is going on at this time. And if I'm being disappointed with so many things, well, allow me that luxury. But what is happening is with these manipulations, with these corrupt practices, it will reflect on the people in future when it will be, it has already happened. I mean, look at Saskatchewan. People were abusing that province's nomination program left, right, and center. You had all kinds of, I can't even tell you how many fake documentation has gone into that processes. And what has Saskatchewan done? First of all, they've absolutely put their program at a halt right now because they are reviewing everything. They want to bring out more stringent practices. Saskatchewan at this point of time is one of the most stringent and strict provinces when it comes to their verification process. Same thing happened with Alberta. Alberta had this accelerated tech pathway and the Alberta opportunity stream. People were running this fake payrolls. People were getting employment offers from anybody and everybody. They were taking advantage of them. A lot of them managed to get through. And then what happened? Alberta wisened up. They have now brought stricter measures in their processes. Now for Alberta, the employer requirements have come into place. They have to have $400,000 annual income, number of employees. So this is what happens. Whenever people are making these kind of things, or whenever people are doing these kind of things, then the future, I wouldn't say generations, but the future batches of people who want to come through the legal, genuine manner, they get impacted because now everything has become more stricter, more stringent. So it takes more time. Documentation requirement goes up, even if you have a genuine work experience, even if you are a genuine applicant. Because the requirement of documentation becomes so strict, sometimes you might not even be able to get through. Getting cash salaries is so easy, but same ways, manipulating those cash salaries is also easy. And that is where Saskatchewan has completely stopped that. Saskatchewan is no longer accepting cash salaries. So therefore, these are the things where we ourselves, when I'm saying we, I'm saying collective us, collective everybody, we make a mess out of things and then we blame everybody else. And so many people who are right now in Canada as permanent resident citizens who are now pointing fingers to everybody else, I can guarantee you that majority of them did not do it the right way anyways. They themselves, manipulated, or they themselves, they twisted and turned around the system and trying to make it work for their benefit. And now coming and pointing fingers is not a good thing to do. Instead, they should try and direct all of that towards the government so that the government can make better policies, better processes, so that everybody else who wants to come through gets, the whole process gets streamlined so that it works in everybody's benefit. Okay, so back to the draws, express entry. So we've known whatever happened with the first draw. I do not know why the scores were so low at, what was that, 549. I'm saying low. Did I say low? Yes. I do not know why the scores were so high. The number of invitations obviously was only 1,280. And with 1,280, that is what we expected, 549. Why? Because you had 1,093 people who had nominations. So primarily, this was not a general category draw. This was a PNP program-specific draw with only 100 some or 200 some invitations given to non-PNPs. After this 10th of April, then there was a draw on the 11th. that is when the long-awaited STEM category draw happened. Finally, it was conducted. The number of invitations issued were 4,500 and the score was 491. Now, this is where it becomes very interesting. With this draw, a lot of you in December, I mean, okay, first of all, everybody all this while was going on and on and on about why there is no STEM, why there is no STEM. They're against STEM categories and they're against this and blah, 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 blah. So, that was getting cacophonic at some point of time. If they did not wanted to hold STEM category draws, they would simply just remove that category entirely from the process, right? Why not have it there? Or they would have simply just started issuing only 500 invitations just to make you guys happy. But that's not the case. The whole point is that STEM will continue to receive a large number of invitations, but don't expect STEM category draws to happen frequently. That is the wrong expectation. That is the reason why you get so disappointed into thinking why the STEM category draws are not happening. Because there are 6 categories where the majority of the focus will always be on the francophones, and then you have healthcare, and then you have STEM as well. So STEM, healthcare, francophones, these will take the majority of the invitations, and then you will have the skilled trade, transport and agriculture, where agriculture and transport getting the least number of invitations. Of course, I think the last one in this numbers would always be the agriculture, because there are only 3 NOC codes there. But by and large, if you look at it, STEM category draws will continue to happen. It will just be that the frequency. We are in the month of April. The first draw for this year has happened now, but then the last draw was in December, right? So it's a gap of about 3.5 months. Expect another draw with a similar frequency probably a few months later. Yes, IRCC can choose to conduct another one next week. That's absolutely a possibility, though. I mean, I can be a bit of a skeptic here in saying I don't think it can happen that frequently, but anything can happen in that matter. Be realistic and expect the next draw within the next three to 4 months. Now, as and how these draws happen, more and more people become encouraged. They go out and get their work experience. They get their 6 months of work experience if that is what is needed. They become eligible, and then you will see more and more people who will become eligible. So right now, for example, the score was at 491. Everybody whose score was 500, 505, 510, etc., but who were not in STEM category would now start thinking, what if I get 6 months of work experience as a web developer? Or why don't I change my occupation for the next 6 months, get work experience within the STEM category? Hey, the next time the draw happens, even I might be eligible in a STEM category draw, even with my score. IRCC is not including me in general category, may as well get into the STEM category. That is what has happened when the last draw at 481 happened, okay? Or even earlier when the draws were announced. With 481, everybody started expecting that the STEM category draws will be lower than 481, because that is a general consensus, right? That each next draw would be at a lower score. But what always matters is the number of invitations. The last draw in December was 5,900 invitations, almost 6,000. This time it's about 1,400 invitations less. With 1,400 invitations less, and of course a gap of about 4 months, 3.5 months, the scores have gone up by 10 points. This will directly impact now the OINP tech draws whenever they would happen, because Ontario has always played it in tandem with express entry. Whatever is the last express entry draw, Ontario puts 1 point less and makes that as their upper cutoff. So by that logic, you would expect that Ontario will conduct their draw at 490 at upper cutoff, and then the lower cutoff could be depending on how many invitations they want to issue. Now, this will still give benefit to people between 481 to 490. I mean, not only 481, but could go below that as well. I can't say at this point of time. But everybody else who are now waiting below 470s, thinking Ontario will invite them at some point of time, now they are in a doldrum. Now, what should they be doing? Okay, so these things, these highs and lows will always happen. This is the reality of Canadian immigration, and therefore, my advice, my suggestion, if you want to take it, always take what you have today, because one of the very common consultations that I do is I am sitting at 492, 493. I've received this invitation from Ontario. Sorry, not a 491. So I'm sitting at 480. I've got the Ontario's notification of interest. Should I continue? Should I wait for the next STEM draw? Because in the next STEM draw, I might get invited at 480. I know of a few people who actually let go of their Ontario's notification of interest in the hope that they will get invited by IRCC's Express Entry STEM category draw, which did not happen. And now you can see what's going to happen with this one. So based on these factors, always take what you get today. Don't wait that it will be better tomorrow, or don't wait for things that may or may not happen. So always take what you got and move with that. Oh, there is other news. I didn't think there was any other news. Let's see. Maybe my editor got it right. Oh, IRCC releases allocation of study permits. I think this is not new news. This is now old news. Allocations have already been released. All provinces are now issuing their provincial attestation letters. We've already discussed that in detail earlier. Connect with us on social media platforms. We are everywhere as far as social media is concerned. So if you are on social media and if you're not following us, then you might be missing out on hot news and updates as they happen. Well, there are so many of you here. There is just one more thing, if you would allow me to, because I know there are questions that are pouring in, and I would like to get to the questions sooner than later. But I do want to get on to one small thing, if you would permit me, and that is for people who are currently in Canada. That is their work permits. And I think there is an ongoing confusion about the work permits, as in who can apply for Bridge Open Work Permit and who cannot apply for Bridge Open Work Permit. Now, this is for those people who are specifically confused about fake extensions, who are confused about who can apply for Bridge Open Work Permit and who cannot. So this is how it goes. If you have applied for an extension of your work permit before the expiry of your current work permit, no matter which one it is, you would then go on a maintained status or an implied status until the decision has been made on your work permit extension application, fake or otherwise. Until this period of time, you can continue working because the conditions of your original work permit will apply. So you can continue working. If it was an open work permit, you can work for any employer. If it was a closed work permit, you can only work for the employer that is indicated on your work permit. Your extension will be refused in most cases if you are not eligible in the first place. And once your extension is refused, you are now out of status. Because you are out of status, you now have 90 days to restore your status, or you have the time to leave Canada. Okay. If your PR application is in progress during this period of time, then you can no longer apply for a Bridge Open Work Permit because you have lost your status and you do not have any eligibility to restore your status to a worker. Therefore, you will not be able to apply for Bridge Open Work Permit. That's number one. Also, if you have lost your status and your PR application is in progress, then that is also a problem, because if you have lost your status, you can also become inadmissible. If you become inadmissible, then again, that's a problem. You'll be inadmissible because of non-compliance with IRPA, because you are now continuing to stay in Canada even without status. So that also becomes a problem. So therefore, be aware of these things. Now, backtracking a bit, if you are on a maintained status and during that maintained status you receive an ITA and you submit your PR application and then you get your AOR. Now, if you have an AOR and you are on a maintained status, you can now go ahead and apply for your Bridge Open Work Permit. And the reason why you can do that is because you have maintained your status as a worker. So IRCC's website very clearly gives you the conditions as to which conditions you can apply for Bridge Open Work Permit. If I just click on permanent residence using Express Entry, if I go here, it says to be eligible for Bridge Open Work Permit, you must live in Canada. That's the first condition. You can leave Canada after you apply for your Bridge Open Work Permit, but for that time, you have to be living in Canada. And either you have a valid work permit. So that's what I told you. You should have a valid work permit if you're applying for Bridge Open Work Permit, or have an expired work permit but maintained your status as a worker. So if you have applied for extension, you are now on a maintained status as a worker, you will still be eligible to apply for your Bridge Open Work Permit. Or if you are eligible to restore your status and get a work permit. Now, if you applied for a fake extension, or if you applied for a work permit extension but you are not eligible, means even if you are going to restore your status, you can't restore it to a work permit. And therefore, if you lose your status, you will no longer be eligible to apply for a Bridge Open Work Permit. So please take that into notice. And if you're in a maintained status and if you have your AOR, please do apply for Bridge Open Work Permit. That is a very important consideration that you must take. Another mistake that people make here is that once they apply for Bridge Open Work Permit, for some reason, I do not know who tells them that, they go back and they withdraw their application that they made for the extension. This will be a huge blunder. Why? Because you are getting your maintained status because of that work permit extension. If you withdraw that application, you lose your status, and therefore you no longer apply eligible for Bridge Open Work Permit. Hence, you go out of status. Hence, you might have to leave Canada immediately. So be very careful with those aspects of work permits and extensions and maintaining your status, and make sure that you always are on the right side of things rather than on the wrong. Okay. Just saying, how about changing your Twitter bird with an X on your promo slide? Oh, you mean on this one? Well, good idea. I will have somebody take care of that. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Okay, let's start with the questions. Sena, I don't see any question. Can't hear you. I think this was in the beginning. Thank you, everybody. Eventually got sorted out. I recently saw quota for French 30%. I do not know what you mean by HC 15%. STEM, HC, I'm thinking you mean healthcare. STEM 25%, trade 5%, transport 3%, agriculture 0.5%, 21.5%, 23K ITS for this year. Is it true? The general score will never go down. Well, to be very honest, I do not know who gave these quotas or the percentage of quotas. If it has come from the IRCC officially, then yes, you can believe it. If it has come from somebody just like me who loves to speculate and work out these numbers and figures, then take it with a pinch of salt. Am I eligible to switch from postgraduate work permit to spouse open work permit if my wife is studying in a postgraduate program? We just got married in Canada and we are both inland because heard different opinion. Well, don't believe in different opinions. You can always go to the IRCC website and you can check over there where it says that the condition that people who are studying in Canada other than masters or PhD will not be able to apply for spouse open work permits unless they are already in Canada and applying for extension of their work permit. Because it says extension of your work permit, so even if you're on a postgraduate work permit which is expiring and now you're looking to extend it on the basis of your spouse open work permit, then technically and by law and based on that explanation and then announcement, you should be able to do it. It's not about a difference of opinion. It's about reading and interpreting the way the announcements are made. Do I need to have 6 months of work experience before the day I got ITA or before I submit my application? The system only takes months here. Got ITA, reach 6 months at the end of April. I know what you're referring to. This is in express entry because all the information is entered as per the month and year and not as per the exact date. The system tends to give you or award you the points earlier than the period of time actually completed. In my opinion, I would still proceed with this if I was you, and I would only submit the application after actually completing the 6 months of work experience. Under normal circumstances, you would get the ITA after your 6 months are completed. But because of this glitch in express entry, it is something which everybody knows, I think by now, that this glitch has been known ever since express entry was launched, and people do get their ITAs at the 11th month instead of the 12th month or after completion of 12th month. So by that logic, and because people who are Canadian experience class or who are claiming points for Canadian experience class or even foreign work experience for that matter, they tend to get their work experience credits sooner. And we have always recommended to them to proceed with the application, but to submit it after actual completion of their work experience. And until today, we haven't heard of any negative decision. And by that, I would say that this should also apply to this aspect of the draws, because there is nothing different here. The law is not different here. It still regulates all the decisions in express entry with the same regulations. Dhanveer, sorry about that. There's no question. Vandana says, received an OINP notification with score of 470. Score increased to 484 due to spouse IELTS. Should I remove it from AE to bring the CRS to 470 before submitting? Well, what you do in Express Entry at this point of time will not make a difference. Please continue with your Ontario application. I do not see any sense of updating your Express. And when you have a notification of interest, what is the benefit of adding your spouse's IELTS? I mean, I could see the sense if you were anticipating a STEM category draw, but by now you already know that the STEM is not going to happen for you. So I would not pay too much of attention to that spouse IELTS because it gets no value for you, and just continue with your score at 470. I will be eligible for Express Entry on the 10th of May. Can I submit my Express Entry profile on May 1? My 1 year experience will be completed on 10th May. If there is a draw before 9th of May, will I be eligible? This is exactly what I was just explaining to you a few moments ago. Then, yeah, first of all, yes, you can create your profile in May. There's no problem. If you get invited before the 10th of May, that is also not a problem. You can continue with your profile. You can continue with your application. Just make sure that you submit your application only after the 10th of May when you have actually completed your legal period of work. Okay. Invited in STEM with 514 points in the EE profile, mistakenly selected the IELTS scores wrong. If I put the right score, it is 512. Should I go ahead? Absolutely go ahead. There's no problem with that. You can correct those scores and you can continue to go ahead. Do we have to select no or yes for the question, was the majority of your study conducted in English or French? Well, if you studied English language or French language before you started your studies and 50% of your studies was only studying English or French, then say yes. Otherwise, if you just studied a regular diploma, master's, bachelor's, or whatever that might be, then select no. Only then you will get awarded your points. I have to submit my Express Entry profile, spouse not accompanying, as I received ITA. Now, can I also apply spouse open work permit for my wife while my PR file as spouse non-accompanying is in process? Well, if your spouse is eligible to be applied, so that you can apply for her open work permit, then yes, you can certainly do that, even if your PR application shows spouse non-accompanying. CRS 509, postgraduate work permits expires on the 12th of May. When to apply for extension? Well, technically, you're not eligible to apply for extension. And if you're still looking to do that, then I would do it on the 11th of May so that you get the maximum period of the maintained status. With PR LMIA approved sitting at 522, work permit expiring in September, any hope for getting invitation, any chances for non-PNP and non-category profiles? If you have a PR LMIA approved and you're sitting at 522, I don't know, to be very honest, because with the way scores are going, it's anybody's guess. I would want to believe that all 500s will get cleared out. I would want to believe that because the data suggests that there are only about 12,000 some profiles with a score more than 500. If IRCC really had the will or intent, then you should see 500s being cleared out for sure. Before September, I don't know. There is no way for me to say whether it will happen before September or not. Again, you could choose to change your status to a visitor to continue waiting in Canada, or you could choose to leave Canada and return back, and then wait for your application to be picked up and then invited from there on itself. Final exam is done last week and grades will be available 25th of April. Final degree will be awarded in May. I have claimed points for this degree in April and I got ITA. Can I continue with it? Well, that's not the right thing to do, because if you don't even, if your exams have been done last week, but you claimed points for the degree in April early, and then the grades will only be available on 25th of April. So what will matter is the completion the completion letter that you will get from your university or college. What does it state? What date does it state? And which date did you claim points? So as far as IRCC is concerned, they say that the conditions of your application on the day you created your Express Entry profile, or on the day you receive your ITA and the day you submit your application, that should be the same. So on the basis on which you have received your ITA, technically, are you eligible for it? I would say no, you are not, because you haven't yet received your completion letter. And if you are not eligible to receive your ITA, if you're going to submit your application when you are not even eligible to receive your ITA, then if you find the right officer, they will refuse your application. It has been 30 days since we submitted passports for PR stamping, but didn't get it. People after us got the passport back, web form submitted. Anything else that can be done? Nope, nothing else can be done. You will just need to wait for them to complete the processing. It's not always the right approach to keep comparing with somebody else. There could be any number of reasons why your application might be getting a little bit delayed. Could be some last minute scrutiny, could be something to do with the passport, could be that the queue of the officer that is processing your application might be longer than the officer who processed the application for somebody else. So just wait it out. Don't panic at this point of time. But if you have raised your web form, then that should be all that. That's the best that you can do at this point of time. Nothing there, Karthik. Saksham says, I have Canadian work experience with T4s and payslips to prove it, but the mode of payment was cash and it says cash on the payslips. Will that be a problem for CEC? Well, if you have a payslip which says cash and if you have a T4 with proper tax withholdings, then you should be fine, though cash salary in Canada always raises a concern. So the mode of payment has not been specified in Immigration and Refugee Protection Act or the regulation. It just says that you have been paid. So as long as you're proving that you are paid by the sense of your pay stubs as well as your T4s. And T4s are important because they establish the tax withholding. So therefore, you may just be fine. Just check with your employer if they did actually make the tax payments to CRA on your behalf or not. But yes, cash salaries in Canada always raises a flag. Postgraduate work permit expiring on the 12th of May. Can I apply for study permit today before postgraduate work permit expiry date? Do you know how long it takes for fake extension decision? You can certainly apply for study permit. There is no problem. You can apply for it before the postgraduate work permit extension expiry date. And as far as fake extension decisions are concerned, I do not know how much time the fake extension takes. What you can always do is look at the processing times of the work permits online on the IRCC website. That will give you an idea because they don't have a separate timeline for fake extensions. They have a timeline for the work permit extensions. And you can take a look at that and that would give you an idea how long it might take. I got my ITA in STEM. My scores increased due to the experience technical glitch. Should I proceed with my ITA? I was out of Canada for 3 weeks. Confirm when to submit the ITA. Yes, absolutely. Please do continue. Submit your PR application after you have completed the legal period of work for which you are claiming your points. I have documents for the jobs that I am claiming points for. Can I skip other jobs? If not, how to justify various part-time jobs under 10-year work history for Ontario's human capital stream without the proper documents? In OINP, they would like you to disclose all your paid work experience within the last 10 years. You can only provide the documentation if you wish to. You can provide documentation for all if you have, but technically you can provide documents for the work periods that you're claiming points for, and of course the ones that will make you eligible in the stream. And for the periods of work that you cannot provide documents, just add a letter of explanation stating that those were part-time jobs, or those are the periods of work for which you are not claiming points, or those are the periods of work for which you are unable to get the documentation. That would suffice. Do we need to submit T4 or notice of assessment or both in your PR file after invitation and Canada PCC2? So first of all, Canadian PCC is not required upfront for any of the Canadian PR applications. That's the first thing. IRCC may ask you for a PCC at a later date. At that point of time, you can obtain it. You don't need it upfront. As far as T4s and notice of assessment is concerned, it is my strong recommendation to include it as part of your PR application express entry upfront itself. It is not a mandatory document, but it is certainly recommended that you provide it. It will help your application get processed sooner and smoother and faster. So if I was you, I would certainly provide the employment reference letter. I would provide the pay stubs. I would provide the T4s and the notice of assessment. Got ITA NOC 21222. IT title matches IT consultant, but duties don't match 100%. Colleague got PR recently using the same NOC in general EE. Can I use the same? Your title does not need to match. What needs to match is your job description. And that is how you will identify your NOC code. Please always don't go as per what happened to your colleague. That is not how you make a decision about your application. Just because your colleague got away with it doesn't mean you will also get away with it. So therefore, always be smart. Make a decision based on the technicality and the logic. And your NOC codes are always validated and matched based on matching job roles and responsibilities and not the titles. Can I? Oh, I just lost that question. Hold on. Where did it go? Can I continue working for my employer if my postgraduate work permit expires, change to visitor record, and leave the country? Will this count as foreign work experience? No, it will not. The minute your status, your postgraduate work permit expires, you can no longer work in Canada. You can change the status to a visitor, but the day your work permit expires, you must stop working. If you work beyond that period, then you're working illegally, and that can negatively impact on your stay in Canada as well as in your future applications. And no, it definitely doesn't count as foreign work experience. Hello, if I apply for an extension of work permit after receiving ITA AOR applied bridge open work permit, if the first application is refused, can we still work? We apply before decision after first application. No. Once your first application that you have made for extension, once that has been refused, you must stop working, because that is the day you lose the authorization to continue working on maintained status. You may have applied for bridge open work permit that allows you to continue being in Canada, but that does not give you the authority to work. So please, the day you get the refusal for your fake extension or for your work permit extension, please stop working. Do not continue to work. I'm a student. My last exam is on the 15th of April and official end of program is on the 8th of May. Until I get my course completion letter, can I work 40 hours in May? No, you cannot work 40 hours in May. You can only work 40 hours until the end of April. After that, you are back to 20 hours per week on your study permit, and you can only work until your final grades or your transcripts or your completion letter has been issued by your college or university. Nothing here, nothing here. Is birth certificate mandatory for spouse for non-express entry? Also, my BC dad's name, my birth certificate dad's name is a bit different. Any suggestions? Birth certificate is required for your spouse for non-express entry application. Please do follow the document checklist. I don't remember it. I don't remember the exact requirements, but do follow the document checklist. I think it is a requirement. The dad's name is a bit different. You can always add a letter of explanation. You may also add a one and the same person affidavit. I have my own construction company and 2 employees work for me, and it's not that big. I do pay myself for it every month in salaries. Can I consider that as a work experience for CEC category based draw? No, you cannot. If you own the company, then you are self-employed. Any work experience as a self-employed individual is not considered eligible in express entry or CEC. I have OINP Fed foreign worker stream score of, you really make me guess what exactly it is, of 47. OINP international student stream score will be 69. What are the chances? I'm an international student with employment offer. Well, to know the chances, please follow the last draws or the previous draws and the trends. That would give you a chance. For me, I can't really speculate and say what the draws would be in such cases. If VES expires, what do I do? My CRS went down due to that. If VES expires, go to your VES account, order a duplicate copy. VES will issue you a new copy, and that would have a new date of issue. And based on that, you can update your express entry profile, and that would give you the new scores again. My job title doesn't match with the NOC title, but there is a 70% overlap in role. Can I choose the NOC code? My job letter has NOC code. Should I still include NOC comparison chart in my cover letter? If your job title doesn't match, that does not matter. Job title, I mean, for example, somebody could be a vice president, and if their duties match with that of an administrative assistant, then the NOC code will not be of a vice president, but will be of an administrative assistant. Similarly, your NOC code could be, manager. But if your roles and responsibility matches with a customer service associate, then your NOC code will become ineligible. You will not be eligible in express entry at all. Therefore, always match your job roles and responsibilities to identify your NOC code and not the job title. Okay. And if there is a 70% overlap, so there is no As far as IRCC is concerned, they have never stated any percentage that you should match 70%, 80%, 60%. There is no percentage. This is all people who come up with these percentages. What the law says is that the substantial number of duties should match, okay, and the lead statement as well. So if you take it to a third person, and if that person can look at your job description and the NOCs and say, yes, this matches, and that person has a fair point of view and opinion, then you could go with that. The point is that there is a substantial match. And my job letter has a NOC code. Should I still include NOC comparison? Job letters don't really need to have a NOC code. Some have it, some don't have it. It is not a mandatory requirement. Do you still need to include NOC comparison chart? I would. If there is any ambiguity, any doubt, I would add a comparison chart to show why does the duties in my employment letter match with the NOC code. I would draw comparisons between the NOC duties and the job duties. I would do it, yes. Should we do medicals after an ITA while submitting document? It says required. Why also do we need to enter Canada in travel history if I came on study permit? If you are in Canada, if you're submitting a PR application from inside Canada and you have completed your medicals within the last 5 years, then you can simply upload the same medical sheet, information sheet that you had. If you have not got your medicals, if you did not complete your medicals within the last 5 years, or if you're applying from outside Canada, then you can simply upload a blank white piece of paper in that medicals sheet. That is what IRCC says. And then IRCC will send you a medical request. After that, you can complete your medicals, and then that's good to go. And do we need to enter Canada in travel history? Yes, you should. You should enter the day you arrived in Canada, and you can show that trip as ongoing and the purpose of visit as a study permit. Got ITA, wondering if I can remove cashier's job since it won't change my score, provide LOE and include in personal history, change the NOC for other job. Yes, you can. There is no problem. If you're making any such changes, always add a brief letter of explanation. Have a valid study visa but never used it. If I apply for visit and get it, what happens to the study visa? Well, nothing happens. If you get a new visit visa, that takes over, that has precedence over your older visa. Nothing happens to your other visa. Or, I mean, I'm not sure what do you mean by what happens to study visa. It just stays there. For EE documents, attaching proof of upfront medical is required. IRCC website says to wait to receive instructions. What to do? Well, in that case, just upload a plain white blank paper. I have 2 profiles with spouse score is 474 and without 489. I am in STEM. Which profile I should make? I'm targeting next OINP. Well, the choice is entirely yours. If I was you, I would go with 489. Can I make 2 different profiles in Ontario foreign worker stream with 2 different NOC codes and 2 different emails? Will it make complication? Yes, because your basic information remains the same. This is you trying to manipulate the system. Don't do that. Ontario has become very, very strict and stringent with these kind of things. Plus, if you have 2 different NOC codes and Ontario identifies that you have chosen a different NOC code as well, they would then raise a concern with your employment and employment history, and again, unnecessarily put you into complication. Just choose the correct NOC code and go with that. I can get 2 different NOC code experience letter, then that makes me doubt whether your work experience is genuine, because if it is genuine, then you cannot have 2 different NOC codes. It has to be only 1 NOC code, right? So therefore, choose the one which has had the most strong trend in being invited, and you can go with that. Work permit expires on June. If there is any option to extend, as I'm in a full-time employment for 2 years now and waiting for the invite, what are my options without LMI? My work permit expires in June. There is no option but to either change your status to a visitor or apply for the extension and then wait for that. But yeah, that's it. Or you get an LMI or you start studying again. But these are the only options. Have high, low wage LMI and job offer give 50 points? Huh? I'm not sure if that's a question or that's a statement, but yes, if you have a high, low wage LMIA and a job offer, it will give you 50 points. Do we need to have a valid PCC at the time of first landing as a PR in Canada? The PCC submitted at the time of EE application has expired. No, there is no such requirement for you to carry or have any PCC at the time you land in Canada. Any RNIP predictions specifically for Vernon? I'm not sure what predictions you're asking for. Vernon, BC, RNIP is still open for critical jobs. I think they will close end of this month. But We are expecting RNIP to become a permanent program. I mean, the announcement was already made, but that it should be back in action from August onwards. In PR 10-year activity section for the period where I was unemployed, what answer can I give? Please provide the name of company, employer, school, or facility. For that, you can mention as NA, not applicable. That's all. And you're good to go. For an open work permit extension for my partner, will the category NOC of my job matter? Like if I get a warehouse job, will that be a problem? It will be a problem, or it will matter if, depending on your status. If you are on an open work permit, then it does not matter what is the NOC code that your job is in. You could be in tier code 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't matter. As long as you are not performing any seasonal agricultural work. Other than that, any other NOC code is fine, but you will still need to provide a job letter. You will still need to provide job roles and responsibilities. You will still need to provide 3 pay stubs as part of the application for your spouse to be eligible to get an open work permit. But yes, it's not a problem. It can also be full-time or part-time. That also is not a problem. I missed the STEM draw with the score of 489. Work permit is expiring in June. Please shed some light. What steps should I take? I know there will be many like me out there. Well, the best thing to do is try and improve your CRS score if you can. If there is any opportunity, that's honestly the only thing you can do in this particular stage. And until you have improved your CRS score, just wait for Ontario to conduct its next OINP tech draw, and you could well be invited in that. And once you do, then don't wait for the STEM draw, just continue with the Ontario's notification of interest. Have more than 35 years of work experience for 2 years, but let us say, but offer letter has expiry date. Is it considered full-time or contract? Offer letter has expiry date, but this has got nothing to do with the offer letter. If you have 2 years of work experience, whether it's a contract job, full-time job, it doesn't really matter. If there was a CRA deduction withholdings on your employment and you have your T4s, then you're absolutely fine to claim it as a full-time work experience. It's not a problem. It doesn't matter what your offer letter says or what expiry it might have. Failed done subject in last semester, PGWP eligible. Failed done subject. Well, as long as you completed your course and your subject and you did not go part-time, then you should be fine. If you did go part-time, then your part-time should only be during the last semester and you will still be eligible. Sorry, Kundan, there's no question. Friend got OINP HIP CEC nomination tune. I can't understand, what does it say? Does he need to show proof of funds? Well, you in express entry, you will still need to show proof of funds if you're a federal skilled worker. But if you are a Canadian experience class or if you have an LMIA and a job offer, then you do not need to show proof of funds. So even if you are PNP, it doesn't matter. In express entry, there is no such thing as a PNP stream. You are still Canadian experience class or a federal skilled worker or federal skilled trade category. Therefore, you will need proof of funds if you are not CEC. But if you are CEC, then you don't need proof of funds. Currently working in a tier 2 job. Okay, a lot of questions coming through still. I need to now up the speed. Okay, hold on. Currently working in tier 2 job for almost 9 months. Can I update my profile with the same work experience or should I wait until a year? I don't know what you mean. Can I update my profile with the same work experience? If you already have an express entry profile and you want to update this particular role, yes, you can update it. There is no problem. You will just not get points for it until you complete 1 year, but you can definitely do it. If my work permit is expiring on September 16th, which is 5 months from now, and if I get selected for PNP, will still valid for 6 months or will it only valid till my work permit expires? If my work permit is expiring September 16th, which is 5 months from now, and if I get selected for PNP, will it still be valid for PNP? Validity has got nothing to do with your work permit status or your work permit expiry. So yes, if you get a nomination, it will still be valid for 6 months. Application is submitted for PNP, OINP occupation in demand. Planning to apply for PhD. Do I need IELTS academic after being a permanent resident to apply? Whether you're a permanent resident or you are not, please follow the criteria of that specific university or college for their admission requirements. I've created EE profile. I'm on a closed work permit. My spouse is on an open work permit. Now, can my spouse create EE profile for Ontario? Which WES for Ontario? Okay, guys, you really need to type your questions in a better manner because this becomes very difficult. If you have created your profile, your spouse can also absolutely create a separate account, a separate profile. You both can have separate profiles in your individual name as primary applicants. If my first extension got refused, are we supposed to apply for restoration of status plus bridge open work permit, or just bridge open work permit, same day refuse? If your extension has been refused, you cannot apply for bridge open work permit. That's it, finished. You will apply for restoration and change of status on at the same point of time, same application. Technicality or no technicality, if your work permit is still valid, then you can apply for bridge open work permit. Otherwise, you cannot. Foreign work experience, but plan not to show so that I become eligible for Ontario Tech. But if that doesn't work, can I update my profile with my foreign work experience since I mentioned it in work and study permit? Yes, absolutely. You can do that. There is no issues at all. My work experience reference letter doesn't have the company's website address. Is it of any concern? I saw OINP HCP mandates it. No, it is not a concern at all. Website address will not make a big difference. Don't worry about it. International student stream rejection, need to tell in STEM ITA. Any kind of rejection that you have for your PR for your any kind of visa or your any kind of application, in your express entry statutory questions, when it asks you, have you been refused before, you must say yes to that. Travel to US while postgraduate work permit processing and return to work on the same interim authorization letter received earlier, or have to wait for postgraduate work permit to be approved? Only for postgraduate work permit. Even if you travel outside and return back, you can work on your maintained status because you've applied for postgraduate work permit. 2 years of Canadian work experience was done on February 3rd. I've lost job on Feb 16th, but I have not updated my end date in my profile, received ITA. Will this become problem? No, this is not a problem because you have completed your work experience. That's not an issue at all. My express entry mentioned my grad grad completion date as 2018. My last exam was April 17. I got degree in June 18. So which date should be given in ITA form? You should give the day you have completed your education, completed your exams. That will be the date you will mention it in your application. What are the chances of low wage LMIA approval? I have applied for it. Is it a safe option? Well, low wage LMIA approval chances depend on the employer, not on you. You have got nothing to do with it. It's your employer, their finances, their documentation, their need and requirement, and the business for which they have applied for the LMIA. It doesn't have to, it doesn't do it. It does not have anything to do with you. I have 2 scores, 474 and 489. I'm targeting next Ontario. Based on your experience, what would be the range for the next OINP range? Which profile? In my opinion, it should be 490 and below. That is how Ontario has always played it out, except for 1 or 2 odd anomalies, which has happened in the past. By and large, they usually always play in tandem with the last express entry draw. I applied for LMIA PR supporting in Feb, but if my application is approved from 1st of May, will it be for 6 months or 12 months? It will be for 6 months if it is being approved after the 1st of May. What to do if not the experience of same NOC code for 2 years, which is what I've heard that is compulsory to apply in OINP? Well, then for OINP foreign worker stream, you need to have 2 years of work experience in the same NOC code for which you are getting the job offer. If you do not have the 2 years of work experience, unfortunately, you may not be eligible for that stream. So you look for a different stream probably. I'm in Ontario on a warehouse supervisor's LMIA work permit. My company offer me printing press supervisor job. Should I get this offer? Well, ideally and technically, you should be performing the same job which is indicated on your work permit and on the job offer. So you need to talk to your employer about this. Nothing here. I meant OINP CEC nomination. Do we need to show proof of funds after nomination in express entry? No, you don't, because you are CEC. If you have Canadian experience within the last 3 years for 1 year, then you are not required to show proof of funds. I've created express entry profile when my spouse's WES was still in progress. I got NOI for Ontario. Can I edit my spouse's WES number in the profile after receiving NOI? Well, if your spouse's VES was not indicated in your express entry, then it has no relevance at all, right? And yeah, it doesn't really matter. For Ontario, your spouse's VES information is not really required. Only yours, you being the primary applicant, your information for VES is required. Spouse's VES information is not required. Even if you update it, even if you don't update it, it won't really matter because you probably didn't get points for it anyways. Worked for a restaurant for 8 months as supervisor. Employer has refused to provide reference letter for food services supervisor. How can I self-claim points? You cannot. You need an employment reference letter, whether it is to be given to you by your employer, by the HR, by your manager, by your supervisor, or for you to be able to provide a job description which is official. You by yourself, by writing your own self-attested job description, cannot claim points. I know there are some TikTok videos which I've seen which says, oh, if your employer is not giving it to you, write your own duties, give explanation, and apply. IRCC does not accept it. It is very, very clear. They've already said this plenty of times. I have seen tons of such refusals. So you will need to get it from your employer or your manager or your supervisor, or there has to be some sort of a company issued official job description for your role. Last semester, I failed one subject. I need to take that course to graduate. Can I work part-time? Will be in part-time status. Will I be eligible for postgraduate work permit? As far as IRCC is concerned, you may study part-time during your last semester only in order to be eligible for postgraduate work permit. I'm coming to Canada in September. After 12th, I've done the course of web designing and development. Is it a good course for good skilled job? I can't tell you that. Just because of a course, that doesn't really guarantee you a job. Please do your research with the job market to see what you might or might not be eligible for. Very sorry for another question. No, don't be sorry. That's what we're here for. What happens if my NOC title doesn't match with the NOC title? It doesn't matter. Your NOC title and your job title do not need to match. It could be entirely different. What needs to match is your job roles and responsibilities. That is the only requirement and a condition. Your title doesn't match, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. My employer is giving general roles and responsibilities letter which they expect for that job role, but not in company letterhead. If your employer is giving it to you, whether it's on a company letterhead or not, as long as they sign, they put their details, they put their addresses, you should be fine. Get it notarized. I got PNP, OINP. You predicted it right long time ago. Well, congratulations. I'm glad you got it. I hope you become PR soon. I show 5 months of experience when I came to study in Canada. Can I add 7 months of foreign work experience with proper documents? I show 5 months of, I mean, if it is genuine work experience and you have proper documentation, sure, you can. And as long as you have also disclosed it in your past documentation, in your past applications, even then you can. Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. So that's basically all that I can cover in today's stream. Thank you so much for joining in. As usual, it was lovely doing this once again. Hey, forgive me for my rant in the earlier portion, but thank you for joining in. I shall see you next time. Thank you and take care. Oh, I'm still